else that I really wanted to do, I skipped right over policemen and firemen. And I just went straight to doctor. I even like going to the doctor's office. I mean, I would gladly sacrifice a shot just so I could smell the alcohol swabs. And if I could borrow the stethoscope for just a minute and listen to my heart, or anybody else's heart who was willing, it was like the highlight of my day. But you know, you wouldn't have thought that I was going to make it. You know, we lived in dire poverty after my parents got divorced. You know, my mother was a Southern girl. She was born in Chattanooga, Tennessee, and was a member of a huge family, as was my father. She got married at age 13, trying to escape from dire poverty, being shuffled from one place to another. They ended up moving to Detroit, where some years later she discovered that my father was a bigamist. He already had another family. And of course that occasioned the divorce. And then we had to move in with relatives in Boston just to survive. And you know, my mother was such a hard worker. She would leave the house at 5 in the morning and get back at midnight, day after day after day, cleaning people's houses, just going from one job to another, because she was interesting. She didn't want to be on welfare. People would say, you have 2 boys, you can be on aid to dependent children. But she just didn't want to do it. She didn't like the idea of being dependent on other people, and she refused to be a victim, and she never felt sorry for herself, which was a good thing. The problem is she never felt sorry for us either. So there was never any excuse that we could give that she found acceptable. She would always say, do you have a brain? Yeah. And if the answer to that was yes, then it really doesn't matter what Robert or Susan or Mary or Jack or anybody else did. You could have thought your way out of it. And I think in retrospect that was perhaps the best thing she ever did for me and for my brother. Because if people won't accept your excuses, then you have to find solutions. And you have to be a problem solver. You have to know how to do things. And when people accept your excuses and you become an excuse maker. Now, you know, there are some excuse makers who become, you know, very successful people. Can rise to almost any office. But whenever something doesn't go well, they always blame somebody else.
That's right.
And it's not a very good way to be. Well, you know, one of the things that I really hated as a youngster was poverty. Some people hate snakes, rats, and roaches. I just hated poverty. I was absolutely sure that I had been born into the wrong family. That there was some mistake here. But I was also a terrible student. Perhaps the worst student you've ever seen in your entire life. And my nickname was Dummy. That's what all the other kids called me.
Wow.
And I must admit, though, I kind of admired him. There was one kid named Steve. He was the smartest kid in the class, and he always made sure you knew that. After a test, he would come and hold this A in your face and say, let me see yours, let me see yours. You wanted to let him see it, all right. But you know you'd get in trouble. But I still admired them and just thought, how can they know so much? They're the same age as I am. But, you know, it's interesting. The kind of student that I was reminds me so much of many students that I see these days. And more importantly, of many adults who don't seem to know very much. Have you noticed that? Have you ever watched any of those man on the street interviews of Jesse Waters? You know, and they go and ask people really basic stuff. And they don't have a clue. You know, they'll say like, what's the significance of Labor Day? And they'll say, I think that's celebrate women having babies. Or you know, they just have no clue about anything. And these people vote. You know, that's the really sad. They're the ones who were so easily manipulated as well. You know, I think about particularly the young people, because that was the reason that I actually decided to get into this race. You know, I spent my entire professional career as a pediatric neurosurgeon, you know, trying to give longevity and quality of life to young people. And I was really planning on retiring after 15,000 operations and, a very arduous career. And, my wife was looking forward to it even more than I was. And I was never going to have to set the alarm clock again. And I was going to get to read all those books. You start saving books before you retire, because you can read them all. They're still there. And I was going to watch all these movies, I would never have to explain to people why I never saw Rocky. It was just going to be fantastic. And I was going to play golf, and I was going to learn how to play the organ. And then along came the National Prayer Breakfast. And that kind of changed things. And I was kind of suspicious when I got the invitation. I said, Lord, what are you up to? Because, I had spoken at the National Prayer Breakfast in 1997 when President Clinton was in office. And I had spoken about integrity and honesty. And it was just before the Lewinsky thing broke. And he must have been saying, does he know what's going on? But I wasn't aware that anybody ever did it twice. And then I discovered that one person had done it twice, and that was Billy Graham. Then I was really suspicious. I said, Lord, what are you up to? What do you want me to say? Well, I really didn't know what I was supposed to say. I kept writing things down. I said, no, that's not it. Right up until the night before the prayer breakfast, I still didn't know. I just decided to go to sleep. The organizers in the White House were very concerned. They said, we want to see what you're going to say. They said, you're not going to embarrass the president, are you? I said, moi? But in fact, obviously, it resonated very strongly with people just talking about some of the horrible things that were going on in our society and how we were allowing them to occur. And really that is something that concerns me enormously, because this country is designed around we the people. And it's supposed to be of, for, and by the people. The government is supposed to be there to serve the people and to facilitate life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. The whole thing has been turned upside down. And now the government dominates the people, tells you what you have to do, and when you have to do it, and how much you have to pay, and what you can say, and what you can't say. That's one of the reasons that I hate political correctness so much, because there were so many of our ancestors who gave everything, including their lives, so that we could be free. And they came to this country so that we could be free, and then we give it up. And that's on us. And we have to, at some point, recognize that the way the system was designed, it was designed so that the people, at any point, could regain control.